You ever use an app on your phone and just wonder how it works? Like, what's actually going on behind the screen? Well, it's not magic, it's code. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you the step-by-step journey of how you can learn to write it. So here's the map we're going to follow. We'll start with the big picture, the roadmap. Then we'll get into the ABCs, the real nuts and bolts. After that, we'll teach our code how to think and repeat tasks. Then we'll figure out how to organize our data, and finally, we'll put it all together. Okay, let's start with the big picture, the programming roadmap. You see, learning to code isn't about just diving in and hoping for the best. There's a real logical path to it, a structured journey that makes a ton of sense once you see it laid out. I mean, really think about it. How does someone take an idea that's just in their head and turn it into something you can actually tap on and use on your phone? It all starts with a plan, a blueprint. And to show you this isn't just theory, our blueprint is going to be something really cool, an actual college course syllabus for Computer Programming 1. This gives us an inside look at the exact proven path that professionals follow to build their skills from square one. And this is where you really see the magic. It's not just a random list of topics. You see how one thing builds directly on the next. You start with the absolute basics, these things called variables, to just hold information. Then you learn how to do stuff with that information using operators. And then you teach your program how to think with conditionals and loops. It's a step-by-step construction project, really.
Okay, so time to lay the foundation. Let's talk about the absolute ABCs of any program, the fundamental building blocks that everything else is made of.
Let's start with the most basic thing, a variable. So, what on earth is that? Honestly, the best way to think about it is just a box. A labeled box where you can store one single piece of information. That's it. And here's what those boxes look like in actual code. See? We've got a box labeled age, a box for a grade, and another one for a name. These are literally the first things you create in any program, the little pieces of data it needs to remember to do its job. The key thing to notice here is that every piece of data gets a label. You tell the computer, hey, this is text, which we call a string. Or this is a whole number, which is an int. You give it a name, a type, and a value. That simple little structure is the foundation for everything else. Okay, so we've got our data stored in these neat little boxes. Now what? Well, now we need some tools to actually work with that data, and that's where operators come in. They're basically just symbols for doing things like basic math. And honestly, this is probably going to look super familiar. It's just the math you learned in school. See? You can use a plus sign to add two numbers, or an asterisk to multiply price and quantity. These are the simple tools that let you take your data and start making it do something useful.
All right, so we've got our basic materials, our data, and our tools. Now comes the really cool part, making our code smart. This is where we give it the power to make decisions and repeat tasks, which is what really brings a program to life.
So how do you make code smart? With conditional statements. You can literally think of these as the brains of your program. They let your code ask questions, and based on the answer, do different things. It's what makes an app feel so responsive and intelligent. And here's the most classic example, the if-else statement. It's basically a fork in the road for your code. The program checks a condition. In this case, is the grade 75 or higher? If it's true, it goes one way and prints, you passed. If it's false, it goes the other way. So simple, but so powerful.
But okay, what if you need to do the same thing over and over again, like 100 times? You're not going to copy and paste your code 100 times, right? That would be a total nightmare. No, instead, you use a loop. This is the ultimate time saver for any repetitive job.
And this is a perfect example of a for loop doing a simple countdown. I mean, just imagine trying to build a 60-second timer without one of these. It would be insane. Loops just make these repetitive jobs incredibly easy and efficient.
Okay, so far we've been working with one piece of data at a time. One name, one number. But think about your phone. You have a whole list of contacts, a playlist of songs, right? What happens when you need to handle a whole bunch of things at once? Well, that brings us to two super important ways to store lists of data. On one hand, you have the array. Think of it like a toolbox with a fixed number of slots. On the other, you have the array list, which is more like a magical backpack that just keeps expanding. So let's talk about the array for a second. The best analogy is an egg carton. You buy a carton that holds, say, a dozen eggs. Once you put 12 eggs in there, that's it. You can't magically add a 13th. It's sizes set in stone from the very beginning.
But in Array List, that's way more like a shopping bag. You can just keep putting stuff in it, and the bag stretches to make room. This is awesome for when you have no idea how many items you're going to need to store ahead of time.
Okay, now for the part we've all been waiting for. We've seen the bricks, we've seen the tools. Let's see how they all come together to build an actual building.
Right. This is where the rubber meets the road. All that abstract stuff we just talked about, now we're going to see how it becomes something real, something you can actually use to solve a problem.
So when you first start out, you're not building a whole skyscraper. Your first assignments are more like building a doghouse. They're small-scale projects designed to give you practice with one tool at a time. You'll write an if statement here, a for loop there. Each one helps you master a single skill.
And it all leads up to a final project, something like this canteen sales system. And just look at what it's asking you to do. It forces you to use everything we've talked about: variables for the price, operators for the total, a loop to handle multiple sales, and an array to store it all. You're going from laying individual bricks to building a fully functional little application. And here's the aha moment. This simple project has the DNA of almost every app you use. It takes in data, processes it, and gives you a result. That core loop is what powers everything.
So there you have it. That's the blueprint, from the very first line of code all the way to a working program. The path is laid out for you. So the only question left is, what are you going to build first?